Hi, it's David Zach with the Crawford Partnership here with my partner in crime, Sarah Herrle, on the economic development side. Here to talk about a great opportunity for our local businesses. There's a program that will fund a grant, $25,000 called the JobsOhio Inclusion Grant. We're taping this in November, but I'm thinking Christmas is coming early for some of our companies this year. And here to talk about the program is Chase Eikenbary, one of the leaders at Regional Growth Partnership of Toledo, helped cover several counties in Northwest Ohio. Chase, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you, David. Very excited to explain the JobsOhio Inclusion Grant.
Awesome. We'll launch into it. What is the JobsOhio
Okay.
Inclusion Grant? Who's eligible? And what
Yeah.
can you fund with it?
Yeah. So the JobsOhio Inclusion Grant, it really provides financial support for eligible projects for companies that are located in distressed communities and or businesses that are owned by an underrepresented population, meaning ownership could be minority owned, women owned, someone with a disability, or a veteran. Grant decisions are based on a number of factors, of course, the company ownership, but the company location, the jobs created and retained, and the total fixed asset investment. And as David mentioned, most grant dollars can be valued up to $25,000. There is an opportunity to, if a company qualifies in a different way, to maybe hit $50,000 for a grant. So I can discuss that if that's valuable to your audience, David. But what we typically target is $25,000 for an inclusion grant.
Okay, great. So sounds like, first of all, you talked about the eligibility criteria. I was looking at this index. It looks like any company in the zip codes, Bucyrus zip code, Crestline zip code, Galleon zip code would qualify. And
Yes.
then if they're veteran-owned, minority-owned, women-owned, they also qualify. And if they're both, you could potentially double the grant dollars. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. So if you qualify in the distress zip code and hit that underrepresented population ownership criteria, we can go after $50,000 depending on the scope of the project.
Excellent. And this could be things such as equipment, land, building, training costs. Can you go over that one more time? What people can use it for?
Yeah, the grant funds can be used for a number of things. So mainly this targets fixed asset investment. So machinery and equipment, real estate, redevelopment. It can also go to help with training costs, of course. But the JobsOhio Inclusion Grant has a little bit more eligible criteria, more so than a traditional project. So this can be used for lease payments. It can be used for engineering services. It can be used for leasehold improvements, relocation costs of machinery and equipment. It can also be used to just things like site prep and overall just, but the most that I have seen companies utilize it for is for those pieces of equipment that they just have to purchase, that they need a little help offsetting that cost. So most of the time the grants go to help with, maybe it's a small renovation for a facility or it's a quick machinery and equipment purchase they gotta get, and maybe we can help offset that cost.
That's great. What does a company have to commit to? Like, what do they have to promise to do in order to get those funds?
Well, this is a really unique program for JobsOhio because it is the only program that's pretty formula based. Of course, we've talked about the ownership criteria and the location criteria, but typically what happens is we need to have the company complete a form, and it's a very simple form. Again, it's formula based, so it's unlike our traditional projects that are very project by project specific. But we would have the company complete a form, and on that form, we would like to have them list their overall revenue. So the leading factor outside of that ownership is the company has to have $100,000 in annual revenue or more. So they need to have $100,000, but we also have to stay kind of under that $25 million annual revenue cap. Basically, because if a company is making over $25 million, chances are a traditional project would be more that their option. That would be the best path for them. So if their annual revenue is $100,000 or more, and it stays under that $25 million, that would be a leading factor as well. Another thing is we would require 10% of job creation. So if a company has 10 full-time employees, we would request and require them to commit to one total new full-time equivalent. So oftentimes, actually just this morning, I pitched a project. This company had one full-time employee, and they are actually committing to 4 full-time employees. So that would be another leading factor. They also need to fit into the Jobs Ohio targeted industry sectors that we typically work with, mainly advanced manufacturing, food processing, automotive. However, if most of their sales are business to business, if the majority of their business goes to business and not business to consumer, we can make the case for that as well.
Okay, really interesting. So it's got to be in those kind of targeted industries or business to business. It's got to be in that kind of 100,000 to, what'd you say, 25 million revenue.
Yep.
Okay, so sounds great if you're in that sweet spot. What about talk about the process? So applying, how complicated is it?
Yeah.
What do companies have to do to get through it? It's like, oh, great, grant programs, what's it like?
Right. And honestly, throughout the 17 counties that we cover at the Regional Growth Partnership and Jobs Ohio Network, I really focus on this can be for companies and for organizations, just like Sarah and David's organization, very simplified program. Like I said, if the company, and Sarah, David, or I can help determine if that company at least meets the minimum criteria. If they do, we'll send you the form. It's literally a couple pages. Fill out the form, send it back to us. We look at it, we vet it, we might, request a little bit more back and forth via email. Then I would pitch it to the leadership down in Columbus at Jobs Ohio. And then, and I get a chance to do that about 3 times a week. So we can do this. This is very timely. So as soon as we get it in, I can put it on the agenda to run it up the flagpole. And then that Friday of whatever week I pitch it is when typically the offer letters get signed, and we send the company an offer letter. Hopefully they accept it. And then we move forward with getting the grant agreement ready to go. And then as soon as they sign the grant agreement, then they can request the grant reimbursement as soon as they have spent $25,001. They can request their grant reimbursement. So that's a very high level overview, but that's pretty much the process.
Okay. Are there any other long-term reporting requirements?
Yeah, reporting is, and just simply because at the end of the day, it is a program and you are entering into a contract with Jobs Ohio. So reporting is completed very similarly to how a traditional project is completed. So once the grant agreement is signed, the company can move forward. They can request the reimbursements for the grant every year for a period of about 3 years following that grant acceptance. The company will receive an annual report asking for an update on how many jobs they created, what's your capital investment, and then they can submit that it's all done online. And this is just done every year for a period of 3 years, just to make sure the company met their metrics that they said they did, or that they committed to.
So what I'm hearing about process is turnaround's really quick. The
Yep.
application's really it's online and not particularly burdensome.
Yeah.
And then they just have to report on an online form for like the 3 years following, probably jobs and investment, and then it's kind of done and closed out. Is that a good kind of summary of what the process is?
That's it. And I would close with the fact that this is a grant that was created And we launched it in the middle of COVID and the stay-at-home orders. And it was really meant to get grant dollars in the hands of companies that we typically wouldn't be able to work with just based on the scope of their project or the size of their project. And it's a way to get quick grant dollars in the hands of companies that really are looking to scale up. So I would highly recommend looking into it.
That's great. Now, I know I'm relatively new here at the partnership, but I know we had an example in Crawford County itself. I think I saw online 75 million have gone out through inclusion grants. So it's a lot of money. But we put in our annual report, or our impact report, Cooper's Mill. Sarah, can you talk a little bit about that project? It sounds like one of our companies have taken advantage of this already.
I would love to share a little bit about Cooper's Mill. So back in 2020, the company took advantage of this and received $25,000 to purchase machines and equipment for their location on Sandusky Avenue, where they make their jams and their jellies and all of those types of things. And so with that, they committed to 2 new jobs, and they retained 7. And the Crawford Partnership got the information to Chase and served as kind of that liaison to make the process easy. And we'd be happy to do something similar for other companies here in the county.
Okay, sounds like a great program. You got to create at least, what'd you say, 10% of the jobs, Chase?
Yep.
Okay, so sounds great. And if you got it, so I guess the bottom line is, if this seems at all interesting, give us a call at the partnership, and we'll bring in Chase and try to help see if you have a project that could qualify. Chase, is this something where there's funding available through the end of this year in particular? Is it restock every year? Is that kind of like time is now kind of thing?
Yeah, I would say, this grant program is live and we're running through it. I would hesitate to say any sort of end date for this, but I look forward to having it be available to companies in 2023, hopefully, and beyond. So take advantage of it now and see if it can scale up your business. And then maybe in 3 years, we can work on a traditional project.
That's great. Thank you so much, Chase. I mean, we really appreciate Jobs Ohio. I think this is a great program that they put out to really help companies like Cooper's Mill and other companies that may not fit in the traditional, I'm investing $1 million or $2 million economic development box and hiring a bunch of jobs. So I think it's great for local economic development to really help those companies. We appreciate you and the regional growth partnership kind of helping spearhead some of these things. And Sarah, Herrle, and I look forward to working with local companies to push out this program and many others that are coming in the future. So thank you, Chase, for being here. Really appreciate it today.
Thank you.